Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here. In the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's what you feel in the gentle caress of tropical wind from the mountaintops. And the glow in your heart from a warm neighborly invite. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours.
Protection of the environment, because it's about sustainability. We need to look at the economy, the environment, and the society that we live in. Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you being here. I mentioned it earlier, we live streaming, and please invite all those who are not here virtually to join us for these presentations. Nature is not a place to visit, it's home. So we are at home in nature. And these are issues that we shall be tossing back and forth to get to know more and to appreciate. Welcome to the 7th edition of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo. We started yesterday. I know some of you have been moving around, have experienced the exhibition, but more is still on till the 29th. And I know you should partake much of what we have showcased, what we have prepared for you. Allow me to dedicate this place and dedicate the people around here by inviting Mrs. Atuhaire Irene to bless us. Nwabine, I know you can bless us. Please pray for us and we set it rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, moderator. Let's have ourselves for a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for this morning. We thank you for your gathered here to discuss this key concept of sustainability in tourism. We pray for your guidance, understanding, and we seek your knowledge and wisdom to be able to deliberate fruitfully for the good and better of our sector, tourism in Uganda. And we thank you for this opportunity of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo 2023, and we pray for full participation during these deliberations. In your name, Lord, we've prayed. Amen.
You can give a round of applause, please. Housekeeping, you just need to move out just in case, that door, the open door. Number 2, we have the Wi-Fi. The codes will be communicated later. And the hashtag is Poate Seminars 2023. So feel free to share that information. Feel free to invite all the others that need to join us. With the SDGs and the Agenda 2030, so many things happening in different sectors. Insurance, banking, tourism is not left out. Would have been asking ourselves, why is UTB doing this? But it's a call for all of us. It's a sense of accountability. But even when we talk about sustainability, it calls for balance, it calls for accountability, it calls for feedback, but also the dissemination of information. So for this, we are here to share much more, to share information, to share knowledge. And we invite all of you to be part of this, not only the panelists that are coming this morning, but you as an individual, your understanding, your appreciation of whatever is around us. We are called on to appreciate the political setting and creating awareness. We are called on to be prudent and manage the risks. We need also to look at how we lead by example. Those given opportunity to lead us. We also called to set standards, to create the data, to get the content that we need to disclose and dispose of to the people. We need to get the market support, the part of the profit as we get out economically. We need to reconcile this and consolidate. But the bigger part, which actually we are doing this morning, is the capacity building to get the masses on board. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we delve into sustainability, allow me to invite the panelists this morning. But before that, yours truly, Lule Godfrey Semwanga. I'll do the moderation, and the interruptions have been permitted to do that. Allow me to invite Mr. Avinesh Venkema. He comes from Mauritius. He's invited me there. He tells me what I shouldn't miss out at the beaches. He's the project lead or the team leader at Switch Africa Green. It's a project under the EU and the United Nations. He's also a board member of MBC, that is Mauritius Broadcasting Corporation. Please, with a big round of applause, invite him to take his seat first. Madame Lilia Jerova, now doctor, may not need much introductions. She's our host here at the Poate, 7th edition. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Uganda Tourism Board, and she'll also be discussing a paper this morning. We'll present that later. Please, Madame Lily, join us at the podium. Mrs. Flavia Kabahenda Ruabuhoro Abuoli. She's the chairperson, Committee for Gender, Labour and Social Development in the Parliament of Uganda. She's also board member in one of the conservation agencies. That we shall get to know later, but now it's an invitation to join us at the podium. Karibu. Please show them some love by giving them a big round of applause. Remember, we're live streaming. And those people need to know that we are very many here. Please. Dr. Yesiga would be joining us. He's been held up a little, but he's a doctor, definitely, PhD holder. He's a doctor in climatology, and he's at the Uganda National Meteorological Authority. I'll mention more about him when he gets here. I think we are gender balanced. Very sorry, the keynote speaker is not joining us. She had an emergency call to the Sudan, but the time will be well utilized. And that was Madame Elsa Tafua, the resident rep. That would give us enough time as audience to ask or to share more of what we have this morning. So, you're most welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have the media. They're giving us an opportunity to share whatever we're doing with the outside world. So you're most welcome. The media house is represented here. But also our sponsors and partners. I'll run through the list later. For now, ladies and gentlemen, we shall just dive into the first presentation from Mr. Avinesh. He will tell you more about what he does because that is his mandate, but also he's got a presentation, and thereafter his paper, his notes on what we're discussing tonight, and that is sustainability. Mr. Avinesh, you're most welcome.
Thank you, moderator. If I may, moderator, I will suggest I invite all the people at the back, as we are a small group, to come in front, if I may invite them. And if the room operator can switch off the light at the back. This is about sustainability, if in fact. This is about sustainability. Sustainability is not a science, in fact, it's a behavior. It's a belief in changing things around us.
Housekeeping, we need the lights off. Some lights off. We need to save the energy.
Only at the back.
Thank you.
Good morning again. I'm Avinash. I'm from Mauritius. It's an honor to be here, and I'm going to go through a simple presentation. What's being done in Mauritius? What is sustainability? In simple words, what are the measures that are being taken at industry level, at the tourism industry, and at national level? Some examples. So first thing, Mauritius, we are a small island somewhere in the Indian Ocean, 1.26 million in terms of population, very small population. You can cross the island in 2 hours, from north to south in 2 hours. So it's about Mauritius. The start of the journey for tourism sector. Back in the 1970s, with the independence came industrialization, and with industrialization, one of the pillar sector back then was tourism. One element, one catalyst that encouraged tourism was our national airline, which started back in the early 70s. So this is about where we started. We have around 250 hotels in Mauritius, classified from 2 to 5 stars. And we also got 2 7-star hotels. Yeah, sorry again. We got 2 7-star hotels, so 250 hotels in the formal market, and around the same number in the informal market. What is the informal market? Is people living around the coastal area who have converted their house into tourist residence. The market share for out of the national industry is tourism is the biggest, with 12.5%. This is a revenue. Out these are from 2018 to 2022. You will see a downfall in 2020 and 2021 for obvious reason. The peak in terms of tourist arrivals was in 2019, just before COVID. It was 2.38 million, which is equivalent to the population somewhere, somehow. Our positioning as an island is our sea, our sun, and our smile. It's a genuine smile. It's positioned as a safe destination. It's a melting pot. With all the cultural immigration, people from different parts of the world that came to Mauritius, it makes a wonderful melting pot. You got Hindus, you got Muslim, you got Christian, Chinese, Gujaratis. It's wonderful, and it's in the food, it's in the folklore, it's in the dance, it's in the way of living, which made daily living something like very special. And we are hospitable. We are known for that. The main market for tourism in Mauritius was since these 50 years. It's a gradual market segmentation. Honeymooners, meeting and conferences, weddings, golf, water sports, retirement. So it's a growing market in Mauritius, retirement. People from Europe spending 6 months in Mauritius and 6 months in Europe because of the summer and climate change. BDS, these are villa residential villas that people buy, foreigners buy against national passport. Film shooting in Mauritius, Indian movies, European movies, medical and wellness, which is a growing market as well. Hair transplant, dental service, and more specifically wellness for the beaches. Going green, sustainability as a concept is not something that is new to us. It's something that we've been practicing since decades, and I will give you some examples. I took this picture from a small hotel, okay, small 2-star, 3-star hotel. So these are practices that is being done at individual level that can be extrapolated at national level. So each hotel realizing that they need to align themselves to green practices, best practices. It's at the same time, you go back to the triple bottom line. One of the aspect which is more important to entrepreneurs is the financial aspect, is that with green attitude, with green changes, bring economies in terms of, you decrease, just like we did right now, with switch off the light. It decreases somewhere, somehow. These small behaviors impact directly on your overheads. So some example, solar water heaters replacing classic electric geysers, replacing normal bulbs to LED lights, again decreasing electric consumption. You use pallet wood for decorations, so upcycling. That's where we talk about the circular economy as a concept. PV panels. We got an incentive by the Central Electricity Board, which is a government agency for electricity. I will show you afterwards when we come to the national part of the presentation. So PV panels on hotels, rainwater harvesting. This is something that I'm proud about, and which, although you remove all the plastic bottles from the table, but it went outside. So there's still plastic bottle in the conference here. But in Mauritius, no conference is allowed with plastic bottles or plastic cups, or, So we move into glass bottles in all hotels. Whether it's rooms, whether it's conferences, seminars. So this is a big thing when we talk about sustainability. I remember I stopped a workshop in Mauritius because there was so many plastic bottles on the table. So it's about walking the talk. Solar power light for outdoor lights. The electric card for people not switching off the AC while going out. Split inverter, split ACs converted to inverter ACs, and shower head, you reduce the water consumption. Same for the water tank in the toilet. You can reduce the flush in terms of liter. Also, this is about the macro changes that hotels are doing, but we're also educating clients coming in, clients and stakeholders around the hotels. I'll go from some examples. These are signages, posters inside the hotels. Eco tips for people to realize, for clients to realize that they need to switch off their AC before going out. Useful tips. We also been into trainings of stakeholders, people around the hotels, like taxi drivers, tour operators, planters. It doesn't make sense that you brand your hotel, you position yourself as a green hotel, when the tourist goes out in the taxi emitting black fumes. So it doesn't make any logical sense. So there's a lot of training. Same for planters. You can't say you're green, but you're using pesticides and herbicides in your cultivation. So it's all about disseminating the good practices. So a lot of workshop being done to educate people. And also we give access to green entrepreneurs in hotel boutique. So people, especially women entrepreneurs, are encouraged to go into hotel boutique with green projects. All was going well until this came. You know all about this lovely fellow, COVID-19, which made us realize that hotel back since 1970 up till 2019, hotel was about concrete resorts, all about big buildings where people comes and have some time. And the concept of tourism, people started to find that this concept is outdated. Tourism cannot be big buildings, cannot be AC vans. Tourism is about a new breed of entrepreneurs started in Mauritius, about proximity, about community tourism, and I'll give you some examples. I'm going very quickly in my presentation. We can go with a question afterwards. So there was, since 2020, there's a shift in the tourism movement in Mauritius. So people started to reinvent themselves. So this is what's the pattern, what's the tendency in Mauritius? Bubble lodge, chalets in forests, container houses, container resorts. Just before coming here, I've been to a resort in Pereira on the coastal area. One guy did put 20 containers in 1 acre, beautifully done, and it's tourist resident, fully sustainable. It's water harvesting, grey water going somewhere, recycling all the food from the kitchen going for compostage, compost for the back gardening. So it's a full sustainable and circular economy resort. And now some green initiative at national levels. The government is giving loans for green project at very much competitive interest rate. So just to support individual, domestic and corporate initiative towards green project. As I told you, the CEB Central Electricity Board is financially giving grant for people willing to put PVs on their house, on their buildings, over their offices. So this is a great initiative for the government. I'm very sorry. This is grant given to people Now I think it's better. Sorry for that. This is grant given to a domestic level for back gardening. So encouraging people to do their own gardening. Again, during COVID, the lack of vegetable, the fresh vegetable, make us realize that we need to backpedal on some practices. You get income tax rebate if you do water harvesting. So something which I encourage here. These are national agencies towards sustainable initiative and energy audits in companies. Other initiatives at national level is ban of plastic bags since 5 years. So you're not allowed in Mauritius with plastic bag in your hand. Segregation of waste at source, so it's being done when they pick up your garbage So there's segregation already in the lorry. No fossil fuel car is allowed as from 2030 in Mauritius, and duty-free is being given on electric and hybrid cars. Management of e-waste is being done in a professional way by accredited setups, and new duty on solar light products. You will see, once we get a roadmap, a clear strategy, everything is possible. Of course, backed by policies, ACOR parliaments. Is Uganda on the right track? I would say yes, because when we go to the basic definition of what is sustainability and sustainable tourism, it's about respecting, enhancing the heritage, culture, tradition, and distinctiveness of communities. So my opinion, my humble opinion, is that Uganda is doing the right thing. You got a leader at UTB, Mrs. Lily, doing a wonderful job by bringing people, opinion leaders, brand ambassadors here. So just one thing I will, if I may advise, is to work on the perception element of things. There's a perception out there that Africa is dangerous across Africa. But it's not the case, because I myself went out to the market the day before, and it's not the first time I'm in Uganda. It's a sixth, I won't say visit, I would say exploration. And I've never felt that my life is being threatened or whatever. So the perception is out there is such that we need to work on that. The only element that not only Uganda but Africa need to work on is this security element. This is my email address. So if you have any question afterwards, any things you want to share, please feel free. Now on the technical part, my presentation was really simple, but I want to. This is something that I want to share with you guys, and I don't know whether it's clear or not. It's a guide that we did in Mauritius. It's a self-implementation and self-assessment guide. It's an audit guide for small and medium hotels. I will share it to Mrs. Lily afterwards, then you can disseminate to all the stakeholders. I will encourage you to go through this guide. It's been done by experts, and it's about walking the talk about changes that you can do at domestic, even at domestic level in your house. What are the tips? What are the green tips? What is compostage about? How do you go about reducing your electric bill and water consumption? And how do you go about tracking your progress over time, over 6 months, over 1 year? It's been done in a very scientific but colorful, user-friendly way. Because I always say that sustainability is not about science. It's a behavior, it's a way of life that we can change, and we need to start changing about. So this is about, you will see afterwards. Sorry. Yes, you will see all the, you can do all the mapping, all the advice, and you can track your progress over time. In the kitchen, so every part of a hotel, you can track your progress, and you can follow this checklist to go green and go sustainable. That's it. I hope I've been useful, clear in my message, and feel free to ask any question. Thank you.
Till we tell our own stories, and I think that's the way forward for Africa. You're all welcome to Mauritius. Yes, you just had a journey there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your moment. We have about 4 minutes of questions from you. Those that can be answered now, yes. Those that can be consolidated later as the panelists get through. If you have any, we do not force you to give the questions. Or any point of interjection, compliment, best practices here in Uganda. You know, we're comparing notes. He's told us his story, would be also sharing our own. Otherwise, you're most welcome. I saw Uhoa here, Usaga was here. These are partners, this private sector. You're most welcome, all of you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Vinesh, for that wonderful presentation. We definitely, in the classroom, we are learning, but most of all, we're getting the best practices. You know, you've done it, and over time, there's something I picked last, and that is the perception. You mentioned that this may not be a science, it's a lifestyle, but lifestyles are developed. I may be coming in from the animal world, so if I get on a planet of the human beings, I need to learn a few things. And if I do this consistently for the next 21 days, that would gradually become a habit. Habits, then characters. So in a way, it's a science, and this is a way to appreciate them and to consolidate it. Then when we practice it, it becomes sustainable, and that is the theme for these presentations. Sir, please. I don't have a moving microphone, but you can move very fast here to save time. Okay, there's one. Just a moment. Karibu. Let me get at least 4, those that we can write down. Questions? You could say thank you, anything. Sir, name first.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Mkundani Albert. I'm a freelance naturalist. In respect to you, and we thank you from all the way from Mauritius for coming and presenting this good paper about Mauritius and comparison. My question is about the enforcers. What advice would you give? There would be enforcers who are the real abusers. There would be enforcers are the one abusing what we are supposed to do, the policies, the strategies, and the rest. Thank you.
Just a moment. Enforcers of the standards?
Yes, the enforcers of the standards, the enforcers of protection.
The certification?
All those.
Okay.
The list is endless.
Thank you, sir. That is registered.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vinash. My name is Bonita, and I own a tour company that deals with disability tours. My question is, what are Mauritius inclusive practices in terms of social sustainability? Thank you.
Thank you, Bonita. I think that is registered too. Is that it? But also thank you. He's given us a book. It will be a guide for some of us. I think the hotel sector, Madam Uhoa, it will be very good for you. This will be dispatched later. And I think what we saw as a scan through are really good guidelines for us to get there. Remember, he was discussing sustainability and greening in the tourism sector. To him, it's a way of life. To him, it's a lifestyle. But to us, most of us, some of us, it could be something new that we need to really grasp and comprehend. Thank you. Do you need to take those two? Just within, you need a slide. Okay, please, please.
as he picks the slide, my name is Maurice Mugisha from the broadcasting industry, and I'm a tourism enthusiast. I had a very exciting visit to Mauritius for work and pleasure. So we had a conference there, and I decided I may never get another opportunity to go back with the family, so I carried family. So I would hit two birds with one stone. It's a really beautiful place. If you haven't been, please do go to this beautiful country. What they're doing, which is intentional as a country, is that they've decided to promote green energy and at least save as much, because they don't have hydropower as a country, unlike us who have a lot of hydropower, and we probably produce more power than we can consume. And so in the broadcasting sector, they are currently transforming all their broadcasting equipment and sites from what would be generator run to solar powered. And they've done it, I think, almost at 100% for the transmitters of their radio stations. The national broadcaster has all its transmitters running on solar energy. And we have a team from Uganda that has visited and has done some benchmarking, and we are currently looking to do the same as part of our sustainability plan. But also, I was thinking, as we do that in the broadcasting space, and I have the Hotel Owners Association here, it would be good for the hotel owners here, if they could, and practitioners in the industry and the stakeholders, to visit and see what you've done with the hotel industry, especially the hospitality industry. Right from the airport when you arrive, you see a sense of ownership from the taxi driver who's taking you to your hotel, to the guy who receives you at immigration. They had a great, excellent, it was just out of COVID, they had a good COVID check system that allowed some countries, not all of us, some countries to get checked on arrival. So you didn't need to have a COVID certificate coming into Mauritius. But they were among the very first countries to make sure that you went there with the COVID vaccination. You couldn't get a visa. But Uganda doesn't need a visa, by the way. You don't need a visa to go. You get a visa on arrival. You didn't need, you couldn't go there without a vaccination certificate. But you didn't need to get tested. You didn't need to do the tests like we were doing for other countries to get into. You'd be tested on arrival, which was really excellent. So my request would be for the stakeholders in the industry, especially the owners here of the lodges and resorts in this country, to come and look at what you're doing. You've done quite a lot of good work, but I think, and sometimes, like he was saying, if our people who are responsible for ensuring we do the right thing with policy, and of course the Member of Parliament is here, I think the private sector can drive that conversation. You don't necessarily need government to be able to say, this is what you need to do. If the private sector does it, you do two things. You save money as an owner of the hotel or the lodge when you engage in sustainability, but also you will find alternative ways of either producing your own power or even generating your own energy through other means of diversification, you could call it. But I am glad you shared with us the experience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before.
Sorry, before you come in, sorry to hijack your time on the microphone, but my name is Jinbi Amgisha. I'm from the Uganda Hotel Owners Association, and we just wanted to share our experience, but more to ask for your advice, because we have tried a couple of these and they have failed. I do know that there was a program with Switch Africa Green that tried to get hotels to be more energy efficient and carrying out energy audits. But what happened was they did come and give us an excellent presentation, and at the end of it all, they say, okay, those who are interested in carrying out an energy audit, we have consultants, I think from Spain or wherever, who are supposed to come. We engage with the consultants, and the consultants need about 40,000 euros per hotel. This was a huge turnoff, even though the hotel owners had bought into the idea. Because the hotel owners said, I mean, if I have 40,000 euros, I have bills to pay, I have salaries to pay, and you're coming to tell me that I need to switch out these lights which are in perfect condition to buy the LED lights. So there was a bit of a gap. The second issue is, like Maurice said, we need to have all stakeholders on board. So for instance, there's a time a couple of years ago where we had this campaign about the plastic bottles, you know, the small water bottles, the water bottles. So we had this campaign and we said we need to start recycling. We had Coca-Cola come into the hotels, give us dustbins because they said, okay, we own the bottles, so we will come and take them. So what happened was, now the people who collect this garbage, this time the local authorities, come and they find the garbage already segregated, but at their end, they do not have recycling systems in place. So they come and get this segregated garbage and still all put it in the same dumpster. So it ends up defeating the purpose because we are two different agencies speaking two different languages. And then some of them even complained and said, you know, you're giving us too much work. Our truck only has 5 minutes. We have got to pick garbage from about 10, 20 hotels. And so you sending us to different sides of the hotel is not really working for us. Just put everything in the same place. So that also defeated the purpose for which. Then the third is legislation. I see Mauritius has been doing very well because the government has taken lead. I recently were trying to get a hybrid vehicle because, you know, fuel efficient, etc. But it was much more expensive than a regular diesel guzzler. And so in the end, we thought, you know, other than getting the hybrid, which is nice and cute and small and silent, we had to still go for the bigger vehicle because, of course, the potholes on the roads, and then it was also very, very expensive. So what is your advice whereby you have a component of people who understand and buy into and are ready, but access to finance is also prohibitively expensive? Somebody wants to be able to do this, but you don't have the income to do that, but all the banks, including the development bank, are giving you loans of 18, 20, 25%. And so you're thinking, this is something I want to do in the future. We have very, very good regulations on paper. You know, we have tried as a country to enforce the plastic bag ban, and we have still failed to do that while other countries can do that. So even as you do try as an individual, it becomes very difficult because your partners and the audience to which you're servicing will be the first ones to complain. And if anything is going to hit your revenue and your bottom line, you end up saying, I mean, why should I be the one taking the hit when everybody else seems to? So what is the advice you would give, especially for the hoteliers who really buy into this, who understand this, who are even ready to be able to make the changes, but with the changes we make rely a big part on our stakeholders. And so by us not having a similar vision, it becomes a lot more expensive for us to implement. Thank you.
All right. I'll start by replying to the third question. Government, as you rightly said, Maurice, it's the government is about policy making. The private sector is the leader, should lead the implementation. My advice to hoteliers, to the Ugandan tourism industry is that just like we did in a project in Sweet Africa Green, we started by greening one hotel. We start by one. We did a wonderful job there, from A to Z, from best practices internally, from capacity building, from stakeholders engagement, community engagement. When we know that this structure is 99% ready, we copy and paste. We don't go national level. If you go national, you will go about 10-15% in this hotel, 20 in another hotel. So go by phase. The advantage that Mauritius has is that we are a small market, small island. It's manageable, 1.26 million people, 250 hotels, easy to manage. So my advice is to go into phases. The policymakers, the enablers, should stand by their policies. We need to accompany it. When we banned plastic, it was a big backlash, major backlash. What is the alternative? In fact, it was a justified mediatic backlash because they put a law, they didn't have alternatives, eco bags, whatever. So within 2 months, they give all the alternatives, which is eco bags, paper bags, provided by government agencies, and police, the police de l'environnement, environmental police, went out in the market to check, to give fine to people not abiding by by this new law. So it's about putting at national level laws that need to be observed, and of course the private sector need to follow that. Just like, government telling you to put PV solar panel on, just to decrease your electricity consumption. Yes, I will put, where will I get the money? So the bank need to follow that pattern in terms of competitive interest rate. So just like the things that I enumerated earlier, that, okay, I put law, but I facilitate your life. I give you grants, I give you subsidy. So this need to follow from the government agencies. And ultimately, when people realizing that they are doing, in 5 months, hotels are doing savings out of their overheads by 8%. When you realize a small hotel electricity bill can come around 300,000 Mauritian rupee. I don't know how many millions in Ugandan. So it's a big saving that you're doing on a monthly basis. To answer your question is that we work with the community. We encourage people around the hotels to be part of the new hotel structure. Just like, as we said, planters. Instead of buying from big central d'achat, big structures, we buy from planters just next to the hotels. We give access to women entrepreneurs in the village to sell their products in hotel boutiques. The taxis or people around next to the hotel. So this element of social integration and community-based business model is what we believe in. And it's not only the hotel industry, it's across industries. Yeah, thank you.
You, Bonita, to write that down. A few of the presentations that are coming in will feed into this particular presentation. Thank you, Mr. Vinesh, and we should be getting there. I know with time and with more disposition, with more attendance of some of these and more exposure. I got Maurice's story. It actually brings it home real good. When we get there, I think that we need to put a break on these exchange programs or the farm trips, but I think that is quite important if we come back and disseminate the information. Thank you, Madam Uhoa. You'll get more, I know, within the feeds that are coming in, but also the other presenters that are coming. Mr. Gaba is here. Mr. Edwin. Just a moment. The gentleman from the meteorological, Dr. Yesiga Godwin, you're most welcome. Please take your place at the podium. He comes in from the Uganda, the National Meteorological Authority, and he will be discussing a paper about climate change issues and how they hinge into the tourism sector. Please give him a welcome applause. Dr. Lilia Jerova, the Chief Executive Officer at the Uganda Tourism Board, is going to be discussing Uganda's tourism sustainability vis-a-vis the environment, social, and the governance agenda here within. She brings the home story to you, but also I know, being that you're from here, we can get hinge into this bigger discussion. Like I mentioned earlier, it's hashtag Poate seminars. Bring in the questions, but also creating the conversation. Madam Lilia Jerova.
Thank you very much, Lule. Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Is it afternoon? Yeah. First of all, I would want to take the opportunity to say thank you very much for turning up for this seminar session. It's a very important topic, which is an emerging issue that we need to deal with. It's critical. It's time. It's time. We can't. It's not a new concept, like it has been said. It's not a new concept. It's something that has been discussed. Sensitization awareness has been going on for decades now. The practices has been happening in other countries. You have seen a fantastic example, case study of Mauritius, how they're doing it so well. Mr. Vinesh is just wondering, yesterday we were in the Victoria Ballroom, every table had plastic bottled water, and he was wondering what's going on in Uganda. So other countries have moved ahead, and it was intentional for us as the organizers of Poate 2023 to have this session, to have experiences from other countries who have had the courage to move on with this practice, take action, and actually change the behaviors and lifestyle of a whole country. Yeah? But we have also learned from him that it has been a process. Yeah? One step at a time to get them to where they are. So, Jean, I would want to encourage you that it's not all lost. I'm sure if Mauritius had to tell us, how long it took them, I'm sure at the beginning it must have also been a challenge. Human behavioral change is not an easy one. So there's a lot of consistency that must be done to make sure that then there is the change. But what I would want to say, Jean, if we could work together with the self-assessment tool that is there, we could actually start with the OHOA members. Yeah, even if they are, we could even say, do we start with Kampala, as a city, and see how we roll that out then eventually to the rest of the country. So I believe it's possible. Mine is going to be very brief from what I was given to discuss on this panel. So it's about Uganda's tourism sustainability vis-a-vis the environmental, social, and governance agenda. We all know that from UNWTO, there's the definition of what sustainable tourism is, which is one that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry players, the environment, and the host communities. Sustainable tourism development guidelines and management practices are applicable to all forms of tourism in all types of destinations. So it's not like, yes, Mauritius is special. They can do it, but we can't do it in Uganda. No, it is actually applicable to all forms of tourism and to all destinations, including mass tourism and the various niche tourism segments. Tourism sustainability principles are the environmental, economic, social, cultural aspect of tourism development. There is need to establish a suitable balance between the three dimensions to guarantee long-term sustainability of the tourism industry. Thus, sustainable tourism, this is my reference is to UNWTO. Sustainable tourism, one, should make optimal use of environmental resources that constitute a key element in tourism development, maintaining essential ecological processes and helping to conserve natural heritage and biodiversity. I think to an extent, as a country, Uganda, we are doing well. We have a lot of areas that have been gazetted as protected areas, as national forest areas, reserves, as national parks, wildlife reserves. Even up to this week, in the top management meeting of the ministry, I attended a presentation by Uganda Wildlife Authority where there is a proposal to even gazette more areas into national parks. So in that line, I think we are doing okay. But also, according to UNWTO, sustainable tourism should respect the socio-economic authenticity of host communities, conserve their built and living cultural heritage and traditional values, and contribute to intercultural understandings and tolerance. 3, sustainable tourism should ensure viable, long-term economic operations through providing socio-economic benefits to all stakeholders that are fairly distributed, including stable employment and income earning opportunities and social services to host communities and contributing to poverty alleviation. Environmental, social, and governance, which is really what I'm looking at here, is a framework used to assess an organization's business practices and performance on various sustainability and ethical issues. Environmental criteria considers how a company safeguards the environment, including corporate policies addressing climate change, for example. Social criteria examines how it manages relationships with employees, suppliers, customers, and the community where it operates. Governance deals with a company's leadership, executive pay, audits, internal controls, and shareholders' rights. So those are the 3 elements of the framework that I'm looking at in this discussion. Environmental, social, and governance considerations have become some of the most important issues facing corporations across the world today. In essence, environmental, social, and governance captures all material, non-financial topics that usually are not being captured by standard financing reporting. Most times we're just reporting about how much cash has come in, how much has gone out, what is the net value of the company that we are working with, but the social-cultural, the governance issues are silent, but we have also seen how there has been collapse of some giant corporations around the globe by ignoring some of the social and governance issues. Given the direct interaction between tourism, industry operators, the environment and communities, the importance of ESG, which is the environmental, social, and governance framework in tourism, cannot be overstated. In a practical sense, the importance of ESG to companies within the tourism industry can be clearly seen in areas such as customer acquisition, customer retention, managing risk and regulations, gaining access to sustainable financing, or managing investor relationships. So the question is, how Uganda's tourism is faring with regard to the ESG framework. Where we have the industry player here. President UTA, in your company, do you make these assessments? The hoteliers who are here, we are here in a facility which has caused quite a lot of financial investment. How are they making the assessment against these three factors? On environment, in Uganda, the tourism business poses a risk to the environment if not well managed and carbon print closely monitored. While assessing compliance to protecting the environment, we look at three areas: energy usage and efficiency. Avinesh already told us, can we switch off some of the lights in this room? Energy is a huge component. Climate change strategy. What are our strategies? I'm glad we have the expert here who will be telling us more, talking to us more about that. Waste reduction, biodiversity loss, greenhouse gas emission, and carbon footprint reduction. The tourism sector was flagged as one of the major factors to help the country achieve the ambitious target to reduce greenhouse gases emission from 22 to 24.7% in the new climate change plan, also known as the nationally determined contribution. So at a policy level, as a country, that has already been recognized, that tourism is an industry that can be able to help us. The tourism sector in Uganda is heavily nature-based, with moderately clear ecozone gazetted in form of forests, wetlands, national parks, game reserves, or other conservation areas. This continually helps limit environmental degradation, exploitation, and misuse. And our brothers and sisters from Uganda Wildlife Authority are doing a fantastic job, and we appreciate that they are even taking to Parliament a proposition to actually gazette more areas to be protected for conservation. However, the sector faces effects of climate change, like the reducing glacier on the Rwenzori Mountains, breaking of river banks like River Nyamwamba. We have seen this from the glaciers melting. We have seen the river banks, flooding. We have seen this for my fellow Ugandans. We have seen the reports from Kasese as recent as last week. We have also seen the increase in water level, Lake Victoria, I think 2020, when we had COVID, we had a double tragedy. We had COVID, and then we also had flooding. And I personally visited some of the facilities that are by the water bodies along Lake Victoria and River Nile. And the conclusion was that the destruction that was caused by the flood was more than what COVID had caused to those businesses. So we have had landslides, unpredictable weather reason, and many others. We should be a wake-up call that more should be done in the tourism business operations to intentionally conserve and protect the environment, since we highly depend on nature for survival as a sector. Furthermore, as a sector, this provides for us an opportunity to innovate products and visitors' experiences that do not highly rely on nature. Case is animated tourism products and many others. And there's a lot of virtual, tourism happening these days. On the social aspect, it is often said that business is as good as its people. The tourism sector in Uganda is one of the sectors that employ non-skilled, semi-skilled, and skilled labor across its value chain. Tourism, as per the national planning, is charged with maintaining the number of Ugandans it employs, which, Jean, you might help me here. I think in 2019, the record was at 667,000. With the impact of COVID, of course, we had a lot of staff who were laid off. And from 2021, 22, the number is climbing up again, but we still haven't reached there, or have we surpassed? Not yet. So we still need to get back to where we were and even grow it further. By looking into the social aspects of the ESG, we consider fair pay and wages. I think this has been one of the discussions that has been coming up often. The employees in the hospitality industry, are they getting a fair pay? Whether you're a waiter, housekeeper, it's something that needs to be addressed. Equal employment opportunities, employee benefits besides the salary. What more are the employees getting? Is there medical insurance? What else is being provided to them? Workplace health and safety, community engagement, responsible supply chain partnerships, and adhering to the labor law. The tourism sector has been ranked high by EOC as a great contributor to women and youth employment in Uganda. Additionally, numerous tourism businesses have adapted to the concept of buy Uganda, build Uganda, buy Uganda, build Uganda. By sourcing labor, raw materials, hotel supplies from the community, and also conducting corporate social responsibility within the communities where the businesses are established. We have also seen some of the partners, the operators in the tourism business, for their CSR, partnering with Uganda Wildlife Authority to establish projects for the local communities. Some of them are women projects, some of them are health facilities, among others. And this is really commendable, and we hope that more and more of the businesses in the tourism sector can be able to do more in this area. There is still room for us, though, in the sector to embrace the social aspect of ESG framework. So this is an aspect upon which we still need to assess ourselves. Yes, certain to an extent, there are things we are doing right, but there is more that we still need to do. On the governance aspect, the tourism sector in Uganda is majorly composed of micro, small, and medium enterprises, thus making governance an option, compliance element of most businesses. By looking at the governance under ESG, we consider corporate governance, risk management, compliance, ethical business practices, avoiding conflict of interest, being accountable, aspect of integrity and transparency. Summit Consultancy Group's report on the state of corporate governance in Uganda ranks SMEs at only 14.29%. We have only 14% who are compliant on some of these aspects of governance. Issue of transparency, issue of risk management, ethical business practices, and so on. And this really talks a lot to the kind of businesses that we have if the percentage of those who are compliant are only 14%. This could even go much lower if the micro businesses are added. Therefore, governance is a key focus area for the tourism sector if we are to adhere to ESG framework of business sustainability. In conclusion, at the back of this ESG framework is the increasing global pressure, a pressure to have companies adhere to environmental, social, governance agenda. Chief executives are facing a test of time. Most, if not all, are expected to fit ESG agenda in their long-term business strategic plans and budgets. Even in the government of Uganda system, we have some of these factors that if you do not have them in your budget, you cannot get any budget allocation. Gender and equity, environmental matters. If you do not budget for any of those aspects, you cannot get the allocation that you are asking for. And on a yearly basis, we are actually marked to find how many points we have earned. And we are also ranked according to how many points we are actually getting. And for my Ugandan friends, you will remember that last year in August, Uganda Tourism Board was ranked as the third best government agency or institution in terms of adhering to some of these. And that was one of the factors that we were checked on. So we have to intentionally budget for some environmental activities. We have to budget for gender equity issues into our budget before we can get the full budget. Companies are also expected to ensure human rights and labor protection practices within their organizational culture. Overall, building a strong, equitable, and transparent governance structure is also expected if the tourism industry is to develop sustainably. ESG aspects are emerging as core values of companies in the tourism industry, major financial institutions, and shareholders around the world. The United Nations considers ESG as a significant element that consumers, businesses, civil society will look up for in a product, and the demand for ESG management is ever increasing. Therefore, for Uganda's tourism sector to be attractive, both to investors and tourists, we need to seriously consider incorporating ESG agenda in all our business operations. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for listening to me, and I say all this for God and my country.
Sustainability can only be achieved in a peaceful and safe environment. We appreciate government for this. Please, a round of applause. That was for the presenter. Another round of applause for the government. Yes, Earth provides enough to satisfy every man, but it cannot satisfy man's greed. Issues of ESG actually consolidate so much of what we do in our day-to-day business. I was appreciative of the people exhibiting, the members of the Association of Uganda Tour Operators. These have to be licensed and have to be passed by UTB. Now this calls for credibility, ethics, and real good practices. Previously, we would do everything we want, and you'd find Lule owning about 10 companies. And whatever goes wrong, nobody is answerable. So I love the last part of the governance issues, which actually help us to consolidate our day-to-day businesses. Members, you're invited to give questions, to ask the questions, areas of concern, areas of further discussion. This is a platform where we create bigger discussions. What we don't do now, we can do in the next year, in the preceding years, but also in terms of think tanking, what we have to take in our back home to our boardrooms, what we need to make better. So when you raise them, we register them, and we shall do a very good work in the next sharing and presentations. Please. The naturalist, I need 4 arms up so that we move the microphone real fast. Any other? Thank you, the gentleman in the white coat. 2 more, please. I'll not take the other regime. Jean came in when I had finished. So, number 3 and number 4, please. Any ladies? Gender? Okay, let's take the 3. Gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Kondane Albert, and thank you, Doctor. So I will ask, where are the tourism activists? In this respect to social balance sheet as per the tourism, we see agriculture doing a disservice to our well-being in tourism. It seems as if we are milking a dying cow. Agricultural activities such as chemical application have left a disaster. Let's say chemicals have destroyed the beehive, the honey beehive, plus other related bees, which are important for ecology and biodiversity. Use of chemicals such as chemical fertilizers. You see the havoc, what is happening in Nyamwamba. Where are these tourism activists? I think we need to have some people to talk about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mukundane. I think Avinash's presentation mentioned something about the quality assurance and a few others that come in. I know today's tourist is well informed. He knows the standards, he knows what he wants, but also due diligence. I think there is a quality assurance department at UTB, but also the discussion gets bigger with the greening. I appreciate your concern, but the moderators will answer to that. The other part is, like I mentioned, the presentations feed into each other. The doctor is here, Edwin, from the climate department. We're supposed to have somebody from the banking sector. A few of these are now being consolidated. They don't give you money when you're not doing something that is pro-people, that does not care for the health of the people. And then the lady, the other gender issues will also be consolidated. So, good question. We shall have a bigger discussion, even if not today, but we shall hinge into it. Next.
My name is Derek Nseko, represent Airspace Africa. So,
what Africa?
Airspace Africa.
Okay, thank you. Please.
So I have to first start by applauding you for the fact that there is an ESG agenda at all, because it's extremely important. And the fact that there is government policy to encourage sustainable tourism is a really, really big deal. And that is very positive to hear. But back to ESG, I felt a bit cheated on the E part. So you alluded to the fact that I think there's someone seated on the panel that perhaps has the lowdown on this. I just want to know what your climate action initiatives really are, because you didn't really expound on that. And yeah, if there's anything on climate and the environment, we'd just love to hear more.
Thank you. I think that is coming in from the doctor. I know different sectors are giving it different approaches, the insurance, the banking, and he should be consolidating this in his presentation. We have the climate compatible financial system development. A status quo report was out, and it was done with partnership with the German development agency. But I know our good doctor should be having something that should consolidate your fears. Sir?
Thank you so much. My name is Ronnie Afema. Ugandan. I do come from the aviation angle. The current ambassador, Aviation Development Africa, and I also represent the Global Improvement Group for the Africa region. So about 1 year ago, when I was appointed ambassador for Aviation Development Africa, we had a topic of discussion, which was how to mitigate the impact of aviation on climate change. And if you look at tourism and aviation, these two move together. I do believe most of us in this room have taken a flight or two out of this country or within the country. For as long as you are at the airports, irrespective of being a Ugandan or not, that is an act of tourism already. So through our topic of discussion, I did come up with a project of how best do we involve the passengers who do fly across Africa and the world every day in trying to play a role to mitigate the impact of aviation on climate change. So we did come up with a campaign called the $1 tree planting campaign, which means for every passenger that flies, on what they pay for the ticket, there's an extra $1, and that extra $1 is a tree planted somewhere to mitigate the impact of aviation on climate change. Like I said earlier on, aviation and tourism move all together. and this is my humble request to UTB, Uganda Tourism Board. As a global improvement company, we have planted over 1.7 million trees across the world, in the US, Southern America, and 5 African countries right now. As we speak, we have signed up 3 local airlines in Uganda already. Vine Air, Trax Aviation, our latest is going to be MAF Air Uganda, and we're definitely reaching out for the national carrier Uganda Airlines. So the smallest being Vine Air right now, contributing to plant 50 trees per month for the next 5 years. Trees are a natural habitat for the wild honey animals, and this being tourism, would there be a possibility of involving the tourism board in this campaign, whereby for everyone who sleeps in, who spends the night in Uganda in the different hotels we have, can a tree be planted by the tourists we have that visit this country, in the name of not mitigating the impact of aviation on climate change now, but this cuts across, from just aviation to tourism. And this country has quite a number of very dry areas, and I think tree planting would be a way that would involve, even a peasant farmer in a village right now, to create a relationship between the tourism board and what these guys are doing. Sometimes different companies don't get involved in this drive because of the expenses. Sustainable aviation fuel is a topic in the aviation world right now, but it's too expensive. That's why we opted to go for a tree planting project. That's someone who can't pay $1,000 for a flight, pays $200, but won't feel financially abused by contributing $1 to planting a tree somewhere. So would Uganda Tourism Board consider a partnership with a global improvement company to plant trees across Uganda, Africa, and the world at large? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Allow me to take those, please. Lily, you only answer one question because time is not our best ally from the naturalist. Tree planting, you're preaching to the converted. The only challenge is you've mentioned UTB taking a pledge. I don't know if she needs to do consultation, but I pray that she answers that as we discuss as panelists. For the naturalists, Madam, quality assurance, the GMOs, the pesticides, just hint on to that in 1-2 minutes as we get the next panelist. I know climate change, you have so much coming in even before your presentation, and we should be bracing for this. Madam Lady.
Thank you. Very good observation about do we have tourism activists. I think we do have some in this house. Maurice, are you one of them? Yeah, I think we do have some, but we need to do more. We need to do more. In terms of one of the responsibilities that we have as Uganda Tourism Boards, we are supposed to regulate the tourism sector. So we do register, license, and classify and grade the different businesses, tour operators, the travel agencies, the hotels. The tour guides are supposed to be licensed by us. It's something that is happening. We are doing that. And specifically for the accommodation facilities, even for the guides and the tour operators, we have an East African community standards that we are all applying across the East African member states. The old standards didn't have some of the issues that have now become the emerging issues, like the environment and others. And those are now being included right now. We actually do have a draft which is supposed to be escalated for approval. So when we come to this hotel and we are going to be grading it, we look at all those various elements of where, you know, how they are managing the supplies, the quality of the different aspects, you know, from food to the facility, the water, the lights, and so on. So that's the new aspect that is coming in the quality assurance that we are dealing with. On the tree planting, yeah, I said generally the government of Uganda expects all its ministries, departments, and agencies to provide for some budget towards an environmental project. Now, as Uganda Tourism Board, yes, as much as we provide for that, when it comes to tree planting, we have majorly been doing the lobbying with the right funders to support tree planting, other than providing for that within our budget, because even if we provided for it, it wouldn't be a lot of money. So where we can come in and support is maybe identify within the networks we have and be able to work with you and see how we can make recommendations for you to get some fundings. UNDP, European Union, some of these developmental partners, we work with them as well, and they're interested in projects like that. And we will be happy to definitely have the conversation out of this room and see how we can take it forward. I think on the issues of climate change, let me leave my brother to first make his presentation so that we are more educated on what's going on. Thank you.
And that is the essence of the platform: networking, think tanking, and creating the opportunities. So you're welcome.
Moderator, if I may just react to what you said about bees and chemicals. I will be very cautious about what I'm saying because I'm not in my country and this session is live. I don't want to create any diplomatic issue, but please don't heed way to international chemicals company. I won't mention any name. Brothers and sisters, don't heed way to these. We have a big ecological problem. Bees is quite an indicator, and it's because of chemicals that we're using in our daily crop and farming. So if these big American companies are not already in Uganda, don't let them come here. So I don't want, it's not the platform to talk about that, but I'm just mentioning that. Thank you.
Need I say more? No. The greatest shortcoming of the human race is the inability to understand the exponential function. At least he's warning us, and at least we appreciated that he's coming in from a country that has breast greening. So the platform is here. Let's discuss more. Ladies and gentlemen, the next presentation is equal opportunities and gender issues, especially in the tourism sector. The presentation is going to be done by Mrs. Flavia Kabahenda Rwabhoro Abwoli. She's the chairperson of the Committee for Gender, Labour and Social Development. But also she represents a constituency, which constituency is part of my community works. She will tell us more about this, but also how we fit in. Bonita, this session is dedicated to you and the people with disability.
Good morning, everyone. I am Kabahenda Flavia Rwabhoro. I represent the people of Kyegegwa district in Toro sub-region, and I chair the Committee on Gender, Labour and Social Development in the Parliament of Uganda. And in the 9th Parliament, I chaired the Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry for 3 years. and the immediate former chairperson of the board of Uganda Wildlife Conservation Education Center, Entebbe Zoo. And I am also a founder and a member of the Uganda Parliamentary Tourism and Conservation Caucus in the Parliament of Uganda. And by the Commonwealth practices, that one is not a statutory committee of parliament, but a pressure group. It's an advocacy group where members of parliament are not necessarily designated, but the common interest that pulls them together to form a caucus where they can support the line committee with much more evidence-based and researched information for the committee to process reports well with evidence, because this forum or the caucus can work with private sector, it can work with civil society, it can work with NGOs and get all that information and research and be able to present issues paper and position papers to the committee for the committee to process well with evidence. And so that's what I am, but I was nurtured as a conservationist and a tour guide because I grew up in Fort Poto at the Amabere Ganyinamuiru site. That's where my home is, although I'm married in Kyegegwa and I represent my in-laws, but I come from Fort Poto. And so I became a tour guide by default. It was not a choice of any kind of vocation. I was not trained as such, but I was nurtured as such because I grew up at that conservation area, and I would guide tourists and even explain things that I didn't know at that time, the stalactites, the stalagmites. I had just crammed them, and I would take tourists there and guide them and explain a few caves and things. But today I understand it more, and I appreciate that the nurturing did me well because I am a real conservation and tourism passionate, and I always want to turn that passion into, transform it into action. And so my standing committee is climate change. I'm a member of the Committee on Climate Change, and that's my standing committee. And so I'm glad to have been invited here to discuss a few things on how to engender sustainable tourism, and allow me to share with you some little bits of insight. And I know you are interacting with more than what I'm going to speak about, because I'm not so much into the practicing. But I observe that tourism has been proven to provide pathways to empowerment, and the opportunity for tourism to make a difference in this area should be maximized. Demographically, men and women have various contributions to the tourism sector and all its other various branches. As highlighted in the UN WTO 2011 and 2019, the combination of tourism and gender is an area that requires us a deeper understanding of the relationship between the participation of both gender and of a wide range of social actors in the sector itself, that is researchers, entrepreneurs, employers, tourists, community, NGOs, etc. Gender equality is a primary indicator of sustainable tourism. Empowering women to participate fully in economic life is essential to building strong economies, creating more stable and just societies, achieving internationally agreed goals for development, sustainability and human rights, and empowering the quality of life of women and consequently that of communities. For the tourism sector, the impact of greater gender equality and women's empowerment would be highly beneficial because diverse and gender equitable organizations perform better. Actually, recently tourism appears to be an effective economic tool to enhance gender equality and women's empowerment. Actually, tourism research shows a growing interest in applying a gender perspective in marketing, in human resources, entrepreneurship, development planning, and any other areas. It is extremely important as a sector for women, not only for employment, business and entrepreneurship opportunities, but also on its impact on women's well-being and leisure experiences. So the relationship between tourism and women could be described as a mutually beneficial one. Of course, gender equality is the fifth component as a priority goal in the key issues for growth and development in the SDGs. However, women still face tons of obstacles and challenges which curb their ability to contribute, and this makes them completely untapped. Women make up half of the labor force in the tourism sector, but are paid lower and are mostly assigned unskilled jobs. Yesterday, when the minister was opening this show, Expo, he was very happy to announce that we have grown the employment in tourism sector in Uganda to 1.5 million, and that 60% were women. But what are the women doing is what we want to question. Yes, the women could be 60%, but we know that they are in those lower jobs which don't earn them what they would earn, and they end up getting far lower pays and wages in this sector than they would get. And so the earlier we started looking at giving them higher level jobs, the better that we shall get out of this tourism sector. For that case, tourism has a positive impact on women's lives, not only by providing economic opportunities and helping to engage in the service sector, but also in achieving a kind well-being, public health, and self-affirmation. It is actually women who make the tourism sector more powerful and resilient. Generally, 54% of the people employed in the various subsectors of the tourism industry are women. And in countries like Thailand, Panama, Latin America, tourism employs much more women than men, while Uganda has 60% women in the industry. ILO 2010 shows that women participate by 60 to 70% of the workforce in the hospitality and the tourism sector. And we know that why women are in the hospitality, because that is their orientation. That is our orientation. We are oriented to do care work, to do hospitality, to treat visitors, to care for people at home and those who come home. And so that is the reason why there may be very many in the hospitality sector. But then to us as the tourism passionate people, we would harness that to improve our hospitality sector into a bigger thing, because harnessing that orientation of women would help us to grow, especially the hospitality sector. For the people of Uganda, you know that the hospitality sector is letting the tourism sector down a lot, where you go to a hotel and you are forced to eat what is there, not what you want. When you go to a hotel, they tell you, we only have rice and posho, and that is what is remaining. And then you say, but I wanted matoke. They say, we don't have that. You can only eat what is there. And little do they know that by not providing for what you want, the consumption will be reduced. And of course, you are likely to turn down and simply go away, because there is something you need, but they are offering you what they have. And of course, very many other things. In Uganda is where they will serve you, and then the waiter goes away to watch a match, and then after you have eaten, you call him or her, come for your money. And I mean, I think we need to really use the orientation of women in hospitality to grow the hospitality sector into really playing into the tourism sustainability that we are all looking at. And so, World Bank 2017, the report illustrates that the promising role of women as hosts in accommodation platforms gives us an edge for us to grow the hospitality sector. More than 1 million actually, which composes 59%, are in Airbnb, and they are women. And so this gives us a discussion on the main issues affecting women's participation in tourism, focusing on enabling factors, challenges, and concrete measures that can be employed to help tourism contribute to greater gender equality. From the family side, women are commonly oriented for specific types of jobs and occupations like unskilled, care work, marginal jobs, room services, kitchen, spas and saunas. And very few are in travel agencies because culturally, even for a woman to keep traveling is not as good here in Uganda because they think you are idle, you are just wandering around. I mean, you don't have anything to do, laziness. And so culturally, women will not travel a lot. They may not be so many in the travel agencies because that's a cultural thing that we need to also speak about as we create awareness. The prominent underrepresentation of women in the leadership and professional positions in the tourism sector clearly expresses this level of jobs that they undertake. In any case, they are low-paid jobs and make women earn less than their male counterparts by 10 to 15% in the sector. And entrepreneurship is also a challenge that women face in the industry. Women are not oriented to make money, they are oriented to receive money. And so the entrepreneurship kind of attitude, perception, I think I heard the first presenter talk about we should address perception issues. Women are not supposed to make money, they are supposed to receive money. And you know from whom they receive the money. And so we need to reorient them into having the entrepreneurship mind. Some countries have prohibitive legislations that don't allow women to have their own tourism SMEs. There is limited funding or resources and arbitrary guarantees that inhibit women's abilities to start and establish their own tourism businesses. Financing opportunities are barred by the bureaucracies, collaterals, and sureties who actually end up fleecing them in the microfinances and the banking sections. Being victims of sexual exploitation and other abuses in the tourism sector becomes also a main concern. And why does this happen? Because the jobs that the women are working in the whole tourism sector are jobs that put them in direct contact with the clients, with the tourists, whose conduct and behavior are different, and women have ended up being abused and harassed because of room service, housekeeping, spas, saunas. There's a country where I went and the massages were classified. There is the ordinary massage, but there is the happy ending massage. That one costs higher because after massaging, then you have to sleep with this woman. And you know, this is in the business where the women are. So most of the jobs that the women are doing put them in direct contact with these clients whose advances may be abusive to these women. Employment in low-paid, part-time, seasonal, and informal tourism jobs make women susceptible to vulnerability and harassment. Strenuous working conditions is another social challenge, and some feminist jobs put women, like I said, in direct contact with tourists without knowing their different cultures, behavior, and conduct, and these continue to cause strenuous and abusive working environments. All this requires that a research and study on the gender roles in tourism is carried out. Countries need to ratify the 2030 Agenda for SDGs, the CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, and the Beijing Declaration for them to achieve women's participation and empowerment and gender equality in the tourism sector. The MENA countries, those are the Middle East countries, are increasingly realizing that they need to consider tourism as one of the most significant sectors for economic development, especially for women. When I was still the chairperson of the board of UEC, we got a lot, there are some years where we got a lot of poaching on our employees by the Middle East countries because they were beginning to form sanctuaries and tourism products, and so they wanted the already trained, and so we had a problem for about 2 years of turnover of our workers because they could offer them the best, until we developed a policy on volunteer training scheme for graduates, fresh graduates, and we trained them, especially those who at Makerere went through the veterinary school. So they would come as graduate trainees, and then after 6 months we appraise them and we post them on our website for tech. And so the Middle East turned onto the website to take employees, and then they stopped poaching on ours, because ours, we really invest in them, in their improvement and capacity building, and so it gave us a lot of cost having them go, and then we replace and retrain. So now the graduate trainee scheme has really saved us of that turnover. And so these countries are increasingly realizing that they need to consider tourism as one of the most significant sectors in their economic development. And they are increasingly including women in this sector. Negative opinion on tourism, like I said, culturally, tourism in our cultures is being idle, it's wandering around, and it's laziness. And you are not supposed even to leave the house and come out to the sun. So there, tourism becomes even a bigger challenge for people with disabilities, and of course the older women. For the older women, it is even taboo. Where are you going? So I think we need to work on these perceptions, and I want to also still refer you to UWEC, Entebbe Zoo, where the older person is allowed to come into the zoo for free, knowing that someone who escorts her or him will have to pay. So of course the older people will not come alone. So for us, we shall tap on those who escort them, accompany them. But for the older person, 60 years and above, free entry at UWEC. Please tell them that they have a free entry at UWEC. And the tourism economic impacts, like social stigma, difficulty balancing between work requirements and family needs, lack of appropriate education in tourism requirements, orientation, the needing management shifts in tourism, waking up very early, sleeping at night, night shifts, especially for the women who are working in accommodations, because anytime the visitors come, you have to wake up, you are shifted, and also the country's perceptions of women's participation are all critical challenges. I proposed some strategic interventions. And one, your destination or company should contribute to the promotion of equality through retributive systems, protection from social harassment, and for promoting the hiring of women in higher level jobs. Provide for social protection systems. You remember in Queen Elizabeth, when a lion picked some worker's baby and tore the baby into pieces, most of the women workers there got very scared to even sleep on site, and they were fearing for their children to be picked by these animals. And so let there be social protection systems in place, healthcare insurance, workplace policies of inclusivity. I think each workplace needs a gender policy. And of course, Lily talked about the gender and equity certificate. And I want to tell you, it is not about the certificate. It is about what you practice. We must go beyond that certificate that the Equal Opportunities gives marks, that paper. We are talking about what activities are you implementing after the certificate, because putting them on just a plan is not enough. We are requiring that you put what you put on paper on ground to benefit these women, people with disabilities, and the young people who are in the industry. You should put up dispute resolution mechanisms to tackle areas where there could be workplace conflicts. 2, a country having a friendly legal environment to the general business activity of women in the labor market and economically. There's a program that is being introduced in the Ministry of Gender, the program of GROW, and it's going to go through 5 years, where World Bank has given a grant to Uganda of $219 million US for growing enterprises of women. We want to know whether there are women in tourism whose enterprises would want to grow. It's a whole round thing, and I want to implore UTB to study that GROW project and speak to the sector of gender to see whether enterprises of women in tourism can also be supported by this GROW. 3 is teaching and training platforms that support women who want to grow in tourism sector. In Fort Portal now, the tourism city, we are registering a lot of homestays, and they are complementing the hotels. And homestays, you know, most of them are managed by women, and we need to also look at the neighboring communities of these homestays where the visitors are coming, and the services around the homestay, and whether they should not be trained in quality assurance, in client handling, and all that about their products. The next one is incorporate gender considerations in the national tourism policies and plans, and commit sufficient financing for full implementation. Enhance messages that will make women stop seeing tourism as a complementary form of income or additional work, but mainstream business. Even the women in crafts, they do crafts after they have done all the other work at home. Then at night is when they are doing the mats, that's when they are doing the baskets. So they are not looking at it as a mainstream business. It is still a complementary kind of thing. Even those in hospitality and those in travels and tour, you need to enhance those messages that make them look at this as mainstream businesses. Train more women in digital technologies in the sectors, e.g. the hackathons, the zookathons, and all the thons you know that they need to apply so that the tourism sector is vibrant, because people need instant connect, they need instant response, they need instant decisions and feedback. And so it is through the digitalization that we can achieve such a thing. And also the basic techs that we know. If only 19% of women in Uganda are proficient in digitalization, then we need to up the game. We really need to up it. Strengthen the ability to have data on the tourism sector, disaggregated by gender, and use it to promote and ensure inclusion for sustainability. We need to really invest in data and statistical systems so that we can plan well and organize well. It is important to make an analysis of the gender dimensions of women's participation in different sectors linked to tourism, like agriculture, like coffee, services, construction, education. You know that in the private sector especially, very many schools in the private sector are owned by women or run by women. And so we need a tourism kind of touch even in these education centers. And the universities, I think, would take lead in this, that we go at a university and we see tourism, edu-tourism, at this university, so that it is not as boring as we know universities are, that you are from lecture room to library or computer room or what, but we need to see this touch on these education centers. The flower gardening on Masaka Road, are these women aware that their flower gardening speaks to tourism, or they are just seeing a business? And those in dance and drama, I don't know, Lily is not here, but I think the TUTB group is here. Allow me to make this comment. And if it were off record, it would do me well. Yesterday, we had the opening of this Expo, and we had a very good dancing troupe, which danced so well. But if a dancing troupe is going to dance so well, and all the people dancing are streaming with sweat, and then they have to come to the tables of tourists, of visitors, to ask, to beg for money, when their sweat is falling on the table. I think this did not go well. You need to really improve there. That if they are dancing, let them remain where they are dancing. They don't need to come through the tables asking for money. Let there be a mechanism where they can really be given either their envelope and they know they have come to entertain and not to beg. Because, I mean, I needed to say that. It didn't go very well. We had a table of ambassadors, ministers, the UNDP resident rep, and people were sweating on their tables asking for money. I think that was not a good thing. And of course, the women who are vending on the streets, do they have in their mind that as we vend, this also speaks into tourism? Are they neat? Are they clean? Can they speak well to the clients? Because some of the clients you see driving on the road are tourists. And maybe they would want to buy a thing or one or two. And so we want to see these vendors also trained into knowing that there's a tourism component in what they are doing. At the landing site, go to Nachiwogo, and you see how these women are handling fish and whether any tourist would want to buy their fish. So we need to organize those spaces where the tourists are likely to want to go. Responsible consumption needs to be encouraged, not only in demand for standards for visitors, but also increased security for women and girls living in the tourism destinations. In conclusion, to pigeonhole the work of gender and tourism solely in the tourism-related SDGs would lead to a reduction of the efforts aimed at consolidating the sustainable development tourism. I think we need to harness these SDGs and see how tourism can play into SDG 5, SDG 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17. All those are requiring responsible consumption, responsible production, and all that. And so all need to be achieved for a gender-equal tourism future. Let us promote these 4 pillars: gendered tourist, gendered host, gendered marketing, and gendered tourism landscape in order to develop, organize, and lead the tourism sector sustainably. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Abuoli. Yours feeds into the destination managers, but also the communities. Best practices. We would have a challenge of, I think it's being done, quality assurance module and money for community tourism. In Kenya, they're doing it well with Kekobat. I think the money was done in 2003, and this actually applies to the homestays, the campsites, the community campsites, and all the other areas. So I applaud your presentation. I know some of the destination managers here can fit into that. But also what our brother Avnesh gave us, I think if we distribute this information, we want to disseminate this information, it would go a long way in helping our communities appreciate this. The women are everywhere. They're everywhere, and they're serving us real good. I need the 4 questions, if you have them, just for record purposes. There's a lady you missed the other time. Do you still hold it? We'll definitely register it, and then we shall take it up. Number 2 is you. I beg the microphone to be moved, please. Number 1 is that lady in black. Number 2. You mention your name, make it brief and snappy.
Okay, thank you.
Just a moment. The other 2, please. The gentleman here will be number 3, and then number 4 at the back. Thank you. Bring it on.
Okay, thank you. My name is Gloria Cavo from Dolphin Tours and Travel, and my concern was about, it comes in about sustainability, and it was about the way the wildlife policies are coming in to curb issues or conflicts between wildlife and the neighboring communities, especially the one of putting electric fences around national parks like Queen Elizabeth. I wish to know whether that is a sustainable way of curbing such issues, and if not, isn't there a better way that is much more sustainable to come up with, to be able to curb such issues?
Thank you. I think that is registered. But I know even her presentation, she mentioned something. It's work in progress, best practices within this harmonization. And you know, the levels of negotiation depend with the different communities. But that's a positive one. I believe she's registered that. Number 2, Madam. Number 2 is this lady. Number 3, the gentleman in the glasses, and then the 4th he's there.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rachel Vumilia from Settlers Tours and Travel. My question is about exploitation when it comes to women. How is the Uganda Tourism Board and all the other tourism sectors handling that? Because most companies, okay, I don't want to say most companies, some companies exploit women a lot. And when you ask for a contract, they keep on confusing you. They'll be like, I'll give it to you, I'll give it to you. So how are we going to handle exploitation when it comes to women? You've given me a job, I've worked. You need to pay me because I've showed you my value. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon.
Good thing, just a moment. Good thing we have 2 ladies on the panel, and I know from our past they could give you better presentation on this. But I pray that we shall discuss it at the end of the climate change presentation, because we shall have more time. So I beg Madam Flavia and Lily to serve especially for that time, bigger time there. Sebo.
Mine is not a question. I just want to tickle our minds. And thank you, Honorable, for that very eloquent presentation. I mean, for me, it just opened my mind to realize that tourism is such a big sector, but I think it gets the least attention. But I wanted to tickle, I had that small discussion with Madame Lily on the offside, to tickle the 4th estate, and I'm glad that my boss, former boss, Maurice Mugisha, is in the house. What is the 4th estate? How are we partnering with the 4th estate, that is the media, to ensure that we push the agenda of tourism and sustainability? I mean, from the way Honorable was presenting, it implies that each one of us can have, right from my home house, I can turn it to an Airbnb, to the food I'm selling, to what I'm doing. I mean, everyone is involved in tourism, but we see it as a thing for the Muzungu. But there's so many players, and I like the way you brought it up, and I'm glad she's on the board, she's a legislator. How can we partner? How can we educate the 4th estate to drive this agenda? Because it's going to put money in pockets of very many people, including the woman. That's what I wanted to do, just to tickle our minds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable, I think the picture gets bigger when painted. Community involvement. I know the communities are doing their part, but I think there is more to be done with the leadership in the communities. You mentioned about this person sweating, and they are getting on the guest table. You know, there could be other areas that we would explore, not mentionable in this room, but I think there is need to engage, to build synergies. I wish Usaga was here, I wish Ukota was here. I've done some work with Ukota, but it gets bigger. Madam Lily, as you look out for people who do the tree planting, I think there's still need for more empowerment of the communities and actually appreciating. If she mentioned that she grew up around Mabere Ganyinamuru as a guide, how much have we invested into the guides that are in these community sites? They may not be able to come to Kampala for the Usaga trainings, but this beautiful girl, this young man, has all the stories about this culture site. and they may not be able to come this other side. So I think it's a discussion, it's a conversation that we need to take to another level. You're right. What can you use your house for as a homestay? Can we set standards for your homestay? Can we set standards for your community camp? I think that is positive. And that's the reason we are taking it to the next level. Continue the conversation online. A few things would come in and would make good. The last question, Sebo?
Thank you so much, moderator. I have just only two. One is a question, the second one is a pain. 1 minute, sir. Thank you, sir. The question is, do we need affirmative action extended to women in tourism? Especially like at Makerere, there's a special points given to ladies who pursue certain degrees. Are we, like UTB or Ministry of Tourism, helping us to pursue this such that women are also given that particular special attention if they're taking a course in tourism? The pain is, just a short story. Last year but one, I happened to be in a certain place in this central district, and my spouse went out to look for a job in one of the hotels. One of the conditions she was given was that to give you a job here, you must satisfy our clients. This is a habit that's happening around, which I could refer to as sexual exploitation of women who are working in the high-end hotels in this country. I would make a simple request for UTB and Ministry of Tourism to make an investigation into this habit and come up with a conclusive report that can be shared with this nation, and we understand why women who are working or ladies who are working in these hotels are taken to some kind of corporate prostitution where they sleep with men with money and then they share the outcome with the hotel owners. I won't mention particular hotels, but if I'm required to participate in that investigation, it will be of value to my family. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope that comes in at the end of this discussion. Allow me at this moment to invite our next presenter. Why? Time is not our best ally, and he tells me he's very good and conservative with time, but also he needs to create space to bring in a few more of the discussion. The affirmative action, we missed out on the presentation of Dengo, the lady at Stanbic Bank, but she said that she's got a report, a sustainability report. It's online. Try to pull it out. A few of these SMEs and medium enterprises that are fronted by women entrepreneurs, you have something good with the banks. And I think that is somewhere where we need to explore. But also I've heard from different sectors, the insurance sector, they're getting bigger and better, but also give a bigger and better platform for the women investors in the tourism sector. Tourism, I know our moderators will get us some answers as we move through. The part of media, Madam Lily, media. Only that, and we'll get to the next presenter.
Thank you very much. Media. I think there's quite a lot of partnership going on between the tourism sector and the media has been really great to us, and we say thank you. And I'm talking more about the mainstream media, the television, radio, print media. I think the challenge right now that we have is with social media. Yeah, the social media is where the challenge is, because anybody can wake up anytime or any moment, can decide to say anything, whether it's true or not. Everyone has become an authority in communicating anything and everything, and that's where the challenge is. Looking at it broadly, you know, how do we actually solve this problem? To me, I I believe that as a country, the solution lies in mindset change. Because if we have a positive mind and we are patriotic about our country, then there will be more positive things that we will be talking about the country than looking always to say the negative ones. But I would say with the mainstream media, we are doing very well. But how the social media gets regulated is where the challenge is. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I know this is a bigger discussion. I'll just give a small example, and I know she's my friend and sister. I was asking her on behalf of somebody for an interview, but I had forgotten our protocols, and she told me, please, you need to get through the PR to get her interviewed. I think the biggest challenge is the lack of preparation. You know, I just wake up and put my message on the social media. I did not even create a script for it. I'm not guided. I don't have an interview schedule. And all these, within the communication school, they will tell you, Titus Kakemboyo here, that you need to prepare, one, your interviewer, but also preparation of self in terms, and we take so much, the mode, the environment, and all those other things. That's not for me now to discuss, but we can discuss it later as we network. Our next presentation is about climate, and it feeds into some of the questions that you've been asking, but I'm not an authority in this. We got somebody to do justice, but just something small to give us, to wake up our minds. Uganda is highly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change, mainly due to its dependency on climate-sensitive sectors, such as agriculture, fisheries, and forestry. For the major export crops such as tea and coffee, they yield losses about 10 to 50%, and these are expected. These were expected and still expected up to the mid of the century. Uganda's 2021 Climate Change Act provides the legal framework for the country's national climate policy. We may not discuss the policy issues at this moment, but we need to just get a hinge into the climate effects to our sector. I'm talking about the tourism sector. So, climate change issues in the tourism sector, Dr. Godwin Ayesiga is here with us this morning. He's got less than 20 minutes. He says he's very good at timekeeping and will definitely leave space for the questions that come through. I know he will have also to hinge on to the other sectors that are not represented here and how his is transposed into the other sectors. Dr. Ayesiga, you're most welcome. Please give him a round of applause.
Okay, thank you very much, Godfrey, our moderator. My fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I've already been introduced, but I always like reintroducing myself. My name is Godwin Ayesiga. I work with Uganda National Meteorological Authority as the manager in charge of training and research. And I'm here to represent the executive director, Dr. Bob Alex Ogwang, who has a busy schedule. And so he did send me here to discuss some of these issues concerning climate and tourism. Yeah, so I think I wanted to start with a good note, expressing our appreciation to UTB for this invitation. I think in most cases, in such engagements, weather and climate is just put on the periphery, and the reasons are not so clear, yet it's glaring that weather and climate affects every sector. So, but to start with, I'm just going to make a few comments. I preferred that we have more of a discussion. I get more questions from the players in the tourism industry than me, taking an approach of lecturing and showing you all the figures we do plot and taking you through all the equations that we solve to look at the climate and the climate change. And obviously, we do know that tourism and climate are in a way generally inseparable. And that's because the operations in the tourism industry happen in the space of the atmosphere or in our general environment. And that's where the climate and the climate change is thrives. So because the fact that we cannot really separate these two industries, the atmospheric science and the tourism, it's important that for such engagements or opportunities, we do talk about the climate. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try and discuss issues that I think might be of benefit to the tourism sector, particularly the operations right here in Uganda. Now, I would have been happier if my colleague from the climate change department was here. Then he would answer the questions concerning policy. Now, let me just pull this off. So what happens in our structure, Uganda National Meteorological Authority does the science. In other words, we look into the data, generate the evidence, and pass on this evidence to our colleagues in the climate change department to now try to fine-tune and design policy. And that feeds directly into what Awol was speaking about here earlier. Okay, so we do know that climate change is a global story. And sometimes even those who don't understand it quite nicely want to discuss it. It's such a huge monster that it's sort of divided into two. So you have one where we have the IPCC that's looking at the science, and then you have the UNFCCC that's looking at policy. And now, I wanted to sort of take a small branch of that climate change and have my discussion sort of inclined into climate variability. It's because we have this climate change that we experience climate variability. And to me, it's climate variability in this case that's critical for the operations in the tourism industry. Now, the climate variability I'm speaking about is what we witness that is associated with all these unpredictability of the weather and the climate. And we know that this directly feeds into the day-to-day activities in the tourism industry. And for example, the previous speaker did mention a scenario where we have had the water bodies experiencing rising levels, and of course that in a way impacts on the tourism industry, because you see this water bulging and taking over the space that's occupied by hotels. But also we have witnessed an increase in extreme events. By extreme events, for example, we have seen these heavy storms coming down, sometimes causing flash floods and causing all the mayhem. And of course, that in a way will impact on the operations in the tourism industry, because you've got to be careful where you take your tourists. You don't want to end up in a scenario that happened in Mbale, where within no minute there was this flash flood and cars and motorcycles were being swept off the road. So you clearly see that climate variability is coming in to sort of impact on the tourism industry. But also we have these prolonged dry spells. In a way, well, I'm not an expert in tourism, but you might either take advantage of that. Now, if you want to look at it from both sides, you might say, well, that's an advantage that tourism will thrive when you have this particular kind of scenario, whether you have this prolonged dry spells, whether you're going to have a severe drought, whether a tourism industry will thrive in that, I don't know, but I'm sure that some of these things have are double-sided. You can look at the positive side of things. Now, but also not forgetting that when we have these extreme events, that translates into damage of infrastructure, such as our roads. And once the roads are damaged, then you're going to have this kind of, a bad press that, the roads are impassable. And so I'm very sure our tourists don't want to, to come to a place that have impassable roads, because they're going to have to spend more time traveling than actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, of course, that calls for more robust climate change adaptation measures. Now, it would have been very nice if we had very good localized studies. For example, you have a localized study of how climate change and tourism are related here locally in Uganda, but we may not have those at hand. And apparently that might be because we have a complexity in terms of, relating the parameters in weather and the climate, and then relating that to the parameters in the tourism sector. But all that is not lost. I think there is still a ray of hope. If it has been done elsewhere, we can still try to, hold other factors constant and try to relate the climate parameters with the tourism drivers. Now, I wanted to now straight away go into what is Uganda National Meteorological Authority doing, because to me that's critical, and telling you all of these stories of greenhouse gases, tell you which one is contributing more to the climate change. I wanted to avoid that sort, but I'm more than happy to take questions if you want to take that direction. Now, Uganda National Meteorological Authority is constantly undertaking research on a localized scale. So we are more interested in what's happening right here in Uganda. For example, we have a State of Climate Report, which is an annual publication. You can check our website for that. So in the latest findings show that the entire country is actually warming. So whether it's southwestern Uganda, northern Uganda, we see a warming trend. And to us, that's not surprising, because if the entire globe is warming, then Uganda wouldn't be an exceptional. If you found the opposite signal, then you would wonder whether you are using the right data, whether what you see as your results are what they should be. So I just wanted to state that from the results we have from our research, that the entire country is warming, and that's a piece of evidence that we are experiencing some signals of climate change right here in our local environment. So that if that's happening, then what are we doing as UNMA? We see that signal, so we want to keep with pace, keep up to speed with what we see in the data. So we have now increased we want to improve the quality of our products, and we have several of those that we think that the tourism industry can benefit from. And I do know some of people in the audience might not know that we have these products at Uganda National Meteorological Authority. So we have the nowcast. We are now doing nowcasting, which is I want to take more of a layman's way, because a nowcast is not a forecast per se, but let's say a projection or a forecast that's short term, just a few hours from now into the future. And we think that that might be vital. And why we have greatly improved our skill of our nowcast is because we have more modern equipment If you have moved around the country, you might have seen some installation in either Lira or Mbarara in Rwampara or in Entebbe here. We have a radar system. That radar is able to view what the cloud system is able to detect how much water content there is in the cloud, and that gives us an idea on how much it might rain in the next few minutes. So the quality of our nowcasts have greatly improved, and you can take advantage of that if you're planning to drive out with your tourists. We have got a 6-hour forecast. So in 6 hours, you know how much you can do. If you're driving from here to, say, Rukunjiri or Kasese, you know what you can do with that product. You know when you need to, how to plan your journey, for example. If you are planning to take out your tourists for a field view, then you can use that product and make good use of time. But we also have a daily forecast. Now the daily forecast is more one of the common products that we have, and some of you do see this on UBC. You can still access it if you miss it on UBC. You can still get it on our website. Then we have a 10-day forecast. If you're planning an activity for the next 10 days, you're sure you can have a weather and climate piece of information to just back up your plan. Then we do monthly. If you're interested, you're planning in a month. If you're planning in 3 months, we have a seasonal forecast. Now for a seasonal forecast, we have taken a different trend. We are now co-producing. We do invite experts from different sectors, and we sit down and look at the science, what the data is telling us, what the climate and weather models are telling us, and we gauge that with our stakeholders. But also we engaging NGOs, that are undertaking conservation projects, conserving the gorillas and the cranes. And what we are doing is that we are providing them with weather and climate information that they then provide to the communities that encroach on those habitats where those very precious God's creatures live. So we want the communities to leave those places so that nature can be conserved. So we are working so closely with International Crane Foundation to conserve the Mother Nature. And we are doing this with support from, of course, Government of Republic of Uganda, the UNDP, the USAID, WMO, GIZ, China Meteorological Administration, the UK Met Office are giving us support. Now, where should we head to after here? I just wanted to highlight a few things that off the cuff we might want to do when we step out of this hall. I just wanted to challenge the tourism industry in terms of how much you can support weather and climate services in this country by, for example, collecting data. If you collect data, in this case you're going to collect data on tourism industry, and then you collect weather and climate information, you collect climate data, then we can merge those two and see how the two align on how the two can be used to project what might happen. For example, from 2030 to 2080, we'll be able to, we can use that data to do that kind of projection. So somebody did speak about having $1, every tourist paying $1 for planting a tree. We can also have each tourist contributing $1 to the procurement of a weather station. And we install these weather stations in the hotspots for tourism. How about that? Isn't it achievable? If we achieve that, we can guarantee you that we'll give you more accurate weather and climate information. But also we are now looking at taking advantage of these partnerships between UNMA and the different players in the tourism industry. Yeah. For example, in other countries, Met services do partner with, for example, the transport sector, and they have installations on those vehicles that drive along those roads, and they collect that information and send it to meteorological services, which becomes very, very useful. So it's like, you know, you give me something and then I give you back something more valuable. So in that case, I'm also thinking that probably if we are doing the budgeting, somebody was speaking about budgeting, how about you have a small component for the weathermen so that we can give you high quality weather and climate information. Well, I wanted to keep it simple, and so with those few points or remarks, I want to thank you very much for listening to me for God and my country.
I think the weatherman needs a bigger round of applause. You know, they've not been given much platform, but in outside countries, these are the questions that linger. What did the weatherman say? You may have the app on your phone to tell you the weather, but I think they've played a significant role. And after the news telecast, the weatherman comes in, and some of you switch off the telly. But I've admired your job at one moment. The weatherman on the TV, not you particularly. But this is also very wonderful. How many have heard from the weatherman in recent days? So let's welcome him, I think, by giving him a round of applause. Yeah, the work, the station, he needs some help. So let's do the partnership and see how we get another weather station. I was just remembering a movie where the weatherman was in a helicopter filming a few other things. So I think the sector gets bigger with time, and I think you have bigger synergies with Maurice Mugisha, the media person, in terms of what they have to report and not to report. So your synergies are with him, and then the mass comm school. I don't know how many people are interested in doing the weather forecast. So to make it more interesting, and I think that was the whole essence of the movie that was done. Ladies and gentlemen, naturalist Sam, where I'm coming, I need to do some reporting here. We have the next seminar coming in this afternoon, and it's zooming into Africa. The Zoom on Africa panel. Ladies and gentlemen, the moderator will be Vivian Liazi. He's the Assistant Commissioner, Quality Assurance at the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. We have panelists, Professor Pamela Kembabazi, the credentials you'll get to know later. Mr. Cuthbert Nchube, he's coming in this afternoon. That's investing in Africa. The PS, Minister of Tourism, should be on the panel. Madam Sarah Kajingo is on the panel. Then Dr. Geoffrey Manyara is also on the panel. So the seminars are getting bigger and better. Be there and invite others. The link for the live streaming, it should be on poate.org. But if you extend nearer to me, I could Bluetooth it to you. Thank you very much, the panelists. You've done a very wonderful job, but also you've helped me in terms of time management. Mr. Vinesh, you left something hanging, but also I was trying to buffer that with what the guideline you gave us. I pray that if it's disseminated and given to the people, we would actually make it something as a take-home, not only for us, but also for organizations. I want to take you down to the grassroots person, the community member, the local community. In terms of your presentation, relate to Madam Kaba, the Honorable Abuoli. What is their take-home from all your presentation? As we do the greening, it's more of the intellectual, it's more to the educated, the elitist class. the people here, but what do we take home to the people in the communities? I don't know if you've been to Amabereganye na Mwiru, down at the caves. How do we start greening at a lower level? I know it's about being careful, saving energy, keeping it real cost-effective, but also accountability. In your own words, but also as your parting shot as we close this session. Mr. Vinesh, from there. That microphone is working.
Can you reformulate, please? I didn't follow up your question. I do apologize for that.
I know this is an intellectual class. This could be actually the cream of our society. But we're talking about somebody who is down in a community campsite at the destination level. How do we explain the part of greening to them? How do they start greening within their community?
All right, okay. I'll come to before answering your question, I'll come to this lady's grievance about labor issue. I think you need to look into that. I mean, I feel sensible to this element of work condition, or, so if I may tell you to look into that. To answer your question, it's a top-bottom approach. There need to be this element from government. These things, sustainability. My daughter is learning sustainability at school. It's part of her curriculum. I was surprised myself. She just joined college this year, and she's doing around 9 subjects. One of them is sustainability. It's part of the formal education. So if policymakers, if ministries start, entrepreneurship is also part of a curriculum, business studies and entrepreneurial studies. So these are things that at grassroots level should be disseminated in a liberal manner, a more formal manner at school. And you mentioned, Lily Ma'am mentioned about the social media. This is a big vector de communication, how you say in French. So use that platform with, not serious literatures, but for instance, create a cartoon, create a persona, create somebody and do small videos, 30-second, 1-minute videos about water harvesting, about back gardening, about things of daily life that you can put into action at domestic level, at grassroots level. So formal education, then bring this message of sustainability across in the whole houses. And also this element of subsidies and grants. I don't know the policies here, but government need to accompany. You can't enforce something when there's no accompaniment, there's no structure and facilities provided to people, whether it's at domestic level or whether it's corporate level. So these are, I'm trying to answer you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, we are live streaming. Madam Lily, 2 concerns in the House, one more pertinent because 2 people mentioned about it, but I think that also came in from what Honorable Kabahenda mentioned. The massage, what is the name of the massage, madam? Happy ending. It's a bigger discussion in terms of the products that are, but the lady here mentions that it's not only in the tourism. She presents her papers, and Lule is here telling her, come back tomorrow, come back the other day, and awkwardly probably request to interview at an awkward hour. How are we reconciling this? I'm throwing it back to you. As much as I have daughters probably coming to her age, I would be more scared. It would be a concern But also the gentleman who mentioned something at the back that he can even give you documented research. So you've been girls before, then you grew into the youthful stage, now you're honorables. Probably your story, or just a hint into your story, would help these people, these young girls, but also us, to have the comfort in the sector. In some countries, it's a trade, and it's classified as a product. But if it's not here in Uganda, what can we do? What hope, what ray of hope do you give us as parents, but also as industrial players? Lily, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Lule. Well, it's a very complex issue to deal with, I must say. One, there's the cultural aspect. Two, there's the issue of individual values. Yeah. That, I must say, some of the experiences that have been shared is not something that is actually new to me. As a woman who has gone through the various levels to where I am today. But your own value will help you go a long way and overcome these things. At Makerere University, I wanted to study economics, but I was given a different subject. And when I was being told, come back tomorrow, come back next week, and then we'll be able to solve your problem to give you economics. When it couldn't come through, I was like, you know what? I actually have now understood what this means. Somebody wants to use me before I can get the subject I want to study. I decided, well, to hell with it. It's not only economics that will make me have a living in this world. I decided to go and do the psychology and sociology I was given. And here I am today. So I think our own values and your determination to stand for what you believe in is very important. Yeah. That is out of my own personal experience. I know that they are all very different. Some might be more difficult than what I've gone through, but for me, that's one of the factors. That at an individual level, you need to be strong enough. You need to have the courage, and you need to believe in yourself. And at a policy level, I think this is not something that we can handle just as the tourism sector. We need to involve the other relevant authorities, ministries, to be able to deal with this. But also, as I said, I don't know where we really want to go, but from the looks of things and what you see, from the discussion in government, I think we still have a lot of value that we keep from our cultural heritage, which is a plus. Yeah. So bringing out some of these elements to light is one way of trying to deal with them, because if they are not talked about, if they are not brought out to life, then how would the policy makers actually deal with them? How would the corrective action be taken? So I would say it's a very big discussion that would require more time. But that's my experience I can share. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Lily. I think this is a discussion that we need to take to another level. In some countries, it's a product. Yes? Am I talking to someone? Some communities actually have been documented. The Hembe people, when you visit that community, the woman of the house leaves the house and entertains the visitor. So these are bigger discussions. I like her approach, the personal values. What do you want? How do you want it? What are you pursuing? But also standing being positive, what you actually want gives you leeway to the next level. Madam Kabahenda Abuoli, thank you very much for your presentation. The gentleman just mentioned something at the back that actually I think you need to consider the issue of one, disability in these areas. A disabled person may not be a waiter. The question was posed to somebody else, but I need you to, being that you're on this Labor and Social Development Committee, disabled people integrated into the sector because you've been in this sector. I know your work has cleared ways for the disabled people, but also the bigger picture, the first, I think it was McDonald that put a front desk manager on a moving platform. He's a cashier, disabled, I think, for the lower part, but this guy he's at the front desk. He welcomes people. In other countries, it's been done, but let's bring the story back home. Integrating the disabled people, Lydia has mentioned something, you may not delve there, but also your parting shots. From the community perspective, but also getting us the bigger picture. But also what you're advocating for, what government can do, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think from the company perspective, we need to encourage workplace policies that offer inclusion right from recruitment, engagement, and activities, because the work you are talking about may not necessarily have a disability as one of the mainstream staff, but they have walk-in staffs. At times when they have a peak of schools coming around, they have people they train outside that they call in to come and guide. When they know they are going to host a PWD's group, or if the school they are hosting has children with disabilities, they will call in someone with a disability to be the one to guide, so that the other disability people can feel at home. But at community level, I think we need to go back to sensitize at family governance. The family governance that is going to allow the people with disabilities to also explore their full potential and be part of what is going on. Like now, these homestays in Fort Portal, I know, are just entertaining tourists who will come and stay together with the family they find. And so these are areas where we need to emphasize that inclusivity is observed, and also to make sure that we look out for the values and the talents of these disabled children. I and my committee visited Ruti, the rehabilitation center for PWDs. They have other vocations, but they don't have tourism. And I found this girl, very, very, very bright girl. She actually dropped out at senior 2. Her limbs are not working. So she tried all the vocations and she couldn't do any. Both legs and hands are very frail, and they can't do them, the tailoring, they can't do the plumbing, they can't do everything. And then she asked me a question which really hit me very far. And she said, "What do you advise me to do?" And she was speaking this very, very good English. And I looked at someone who can even be a journalist, much as her hands and her legs could not do any other vocation, but I think she can speak. She can do a very good documentary, she can be a very good speaker, she can do very good guiding, especially online. And so I think we need to start finding out where we can fit these people, and then they become part of the fabric of the tourism sector.
Thank you, Abuoli. That's quite a sensitive subject. Everybody is a candidate to disability. You know that? Tomorrow you'll be out here, you could get an accident and things go the other way. And you know the other part is, you may say it's physical, but also there is emotional disability. That's why I think the word perception comes in, the mindset change. Most of us could be having challenges here and they need to be helped. My brother Godwin, climate change. I was talking about the weatherman, but you are the professionals here. I also wanted you to integrate something about this being transposed in other sectors. Have you moved further? I'm glad you're here in tourism. We're building synergies now. I love your plea and your call. If you're on a pulpit, you're actually sending the message home. We need to get more meteorological centers. It could be a tourism product. But what about the other sectors, the banking sectors? You'd consolidate all that, because I know as we pick on the best practices, this would help us, but also to these people who are expecting somebody from the banking sector, all in the name of sustainability, and also your parting shots. So those are about 3 in 1.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. I want to start with the first one, where you talk about how we engaging other sectors. I remember in my remarks I started by talking about a fact that weather and climate is a cross-cutting good. And so, in between my remarks, I did mention that what we are doing at UNMA is engaging the various sectors. The engagement is in a manner that we do invite them each time we are having, it could be a seasonal forecast, or it could be sensitization concerning issues of climate change and climate variability. And we also have special engagements for special categories of people. We have had several engagements with the media. A couple of media houses have personnel who have had basic training or basic interaction with the meteorologists and the climate scientists to try and demystify the science and be able to to send the message to our intended target. I don't know whether that sort of wraps up 2 of these 2 aspects that you wanted me to address.
Yes, sir.
And then on my parting shot, I just want to encourage ladies and gentlemen in this room to look out for this information. You may not be using it as you, but you have a sister, a brother, or somebody up country who needs it. But you have access to it. You have a smartphone. You can get it from WhatsApp and share it with people who might find it very useful. The agricultural sector is actually making good use of this information, and so much of the support from USAID really is geared towards supporting the agriculture sector. So I want to appeal to the audience here, please, if you get this information in any way, please pass it. But you also have to be cautious. And normally when you send out this information, we tend to highlight that it's from Uganda National Meteorological Authority. Because we're having a quickly evolving ICT sector, the technology is running so fast that you can get all sorts of information from the internet. And sometimes it's not from Uganda National Meteorological Authority, it's from another provider. So, and when you look at it and you find that it's not accurate, then you get back to the authority and say, oh, I accessed this information, but it wasn't accurate. But you forget that the source of information, getting to know where the information came from, is quite critical. So look out for information from Uganda National Meteorological Authority. So with that, I want to thank our audience.
Thank you very much, audience, for this. You've been a wonderful audience. We have the presenters, the panelists, coming up front here, but also Madam Lilia Jarova do us the honors of giving our panelists those gifts as take-homes to remember us and also remember the 7th edition of Poate. The next presentation actually is coming in. The members are already here. So you just need to run, get your lunch, and then come back here. Sophie, come and give us some guidance here. But also we need the photo shoot for the members who have been here. Thank you. Mr. Vinesh, thank you. Ladies first. Thank you, Honorable Awoli Kawahinda, for your wonderful presentation. Godwin, thank you very much for the climate intervention report. The story from Mauritius will be taken on seriously. Thank you, Mr. Vinesh, for that wonderful presentation. Thank you. Thank you, Le Godfrey, for interrupting the session. Ladies and gentlemen, sustainability is about accountability, and time is one aspect and resource that we need to be held accountable to. Just get out, grab your lunch, stretch a little, freshen up, and then join us for the next session. You are most welcome. If it was, this is for Bonita.
Awesome. I just want to... Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here. In the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's what you feel in the gentle caress of tropical wind from the mountaintops. And the glow in your heart from a warm neighborly invite. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the pearl of Africa.
Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges, located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not.
Every waking day is a reminder just how beautiful this, our land, truly is. The kind of beauty that you can only find here. In the lush green all around us and the wondrous sights within. It's what you feel in the gentle caress of tropical wind from the mountaintops. And the glow in your heart from a warm neighborly invite. It's in the distinct aroma of our cooking to the taste of food that takes you on a journey. In the sound of homecoming and the sound of Mother Earth. In the magnificence we find on our travels and the exciting moments we experience. Ours is the kind of beauty that comes in all things big and small. All we have to do is awaken our senses and truly enjoy what's uniquely ours. Explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa.
Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges, located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes, and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes, and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the Mountains of the Moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes, and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes, and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, Mountain Lake at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes, and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known as the Mountains of the Moon, are stretched over 120 kilometers long and 61 kilometers wide. Come and experience Africa's most beautiful alpine area. With every hour and every altitude gain, the landscapes, colors and views are ever-changing. This UNESCO-protected national park contains unique biodiversity and breathtaking sceneries such as the bamboo zones, mossy heather zone, numerous waterfalls, tropical rainforest, mountain lakes, and eternal snow. Culminating at an altitude of 5,109 meters, the Margarita Peak is the highest point in Uganda and the third highest peak of the whole African continent after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. This mystical and demanding mountain range is located on the foothills of Queen Elizabeth National Park, one of Africa's most popular game drives, and a few hundred kilometers from the Bwindi impenetrable forest that inhabits the endangered silverback mountain gorillas. Rwenzori Mountains offers trails for all levels of hikers, which range from 1-day to 10-day trips. The shorter trips are not as physically demanding and still showcase the amazing beauty in the art of nature, including rare vegetation, rivers, and numerous waterfalls. This unique biosphere is a true gem that needs to be preserved not only for the many endemic species it contains, but also for the local community which directly benefits and lives from the mountain's gifts. Be ready for the ultimate trekking experience. Come and discover Rwenzori, the mountains of the moon located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. Welcome to one of Africa's highest, most remote and unknown mountain ranges located in Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. The Rwenzori Mountains, also known